moving forward.
Aloha kako, everyone, and welcome back. It's been a crazy week. Haven't done my Wednesday or my Friday check-in, but those ones are a little superficial to me. So, this first month, it's going to be kind of a stretch fitting things in, but I'm holding to my New Year's resolution and talking about what we can do here on Maui. So last week, we were blessed to have Kenny Rollins Fernandez as our first guest of the new year. This week, so blessed to have Council Member Shane Sinenci. Aloha, Shane.
Hey, aloha, brother Kawika, and Hau'oli Makahiki Hoke.
Oh, Hau'oli Makahiki Hoke to you. And it's been a beautiful new year. At least it has for me. How about you?
Yeah, it has. The weather's been nice. We've got some nice crisp weather here out in East Maui. And so hopefully it's a sign of things to come, yeah?
Oh, yes. I'm blessed to be looking out today over Makahiki, and, it is probably one of the most greenest seasons I have seen in a while.
Yeah, awesome.
So, speaking of the new year, do you do resolutions at all?
Well, the only resolution I have, it's my birthday on New Year. So everybody gets to celebrate my birthday. So it's just, it's always been like that. But yeah, it just reminds me of getting older.
Right.
But always hopeful for a new year, right? New time, new year.
Yes, a new year and new things to do. So now that the election's over, our things to do now, we have a plate that is full of wants, needs, and promises from all sides of our community. And, I was talking with Kiani last week, and she was saying that, I was asking about those vetoes from Victorino in the 11th hour. And I thought it was very interesting the way they played out they did. And I know that he's not mayor anymore, but I go, hey, uncle, what's the deal, bro? So you were attached to the cultural overlay bill. Now first, before I know I talked about it a little with her, but, I like give it straight from the horse's mouth. So could you please tell everyone, what is in the intent of this whole cultural overlay?
Hey, yeah, and mahalo for bringing that up. Us too, we were kind of disappointed that it got vetoed, but it's been a long process from when we started 4 years ago. For me, the cultural overlay bill was just to add more protections for our burial sites, our iwi kupuna, our cultural sites, those types of things. So it was just to add another layer, a home rule layer of protection. In the past, Kawika, the problem has been at the state level. The state has just been, overburdened with a lot of developments, and they weren't able, and they're short-staffed at the SHPD office, the State Historic Preservation Department. So a lot of these times, these projects don't get reviewed by them. And in the past, if they don't get reviewed within, 30 days, then some of these projects just keep going. SHPD didn't, comment on them, so it looks like we can continue with this bill. So we started 4 years ago with the first ever county archaeologist. And so, okay, if we can't get an archaeologist from the state, let's get our own archaeologists, right, to review some of these plans. So in a nutshell, that was what the bill was about, is to put the county archaeologist to kind of help with some of the permits that came through. She didn't, I think the fear was, and maybe from the mayor, that the county archaeologist had the power to stop projects, but she didn't. And I think that was the misnomer out there, was that just one person could stop these projects. But all the bill did was just have her kind of opine on some of these permits and just say, hey, looking at the state maps from past years, it looks like they found some burials here, and here. So it's supposed to kind of, okay, let the developers know that, hey, if you're going to develop here, we've found burials in the past, so you may want to maybe not develop there, maybe reconsider even purchasing the property or something like that. But it was just to give, and she would just advise the department heads on um, on the process. And I did want to tell you, Kawika, all of the mayor's departments support, majority of the departments supported the archaeologists, because it was real quick. She looked at the state maps. She could tell the department heads, hey, there's this, that going on. And we can still do that. She's already doing those things, but we did want to kind of codify those state processes within our county codes.
That's, and that's a really good thing to bring up, but people don't realize that, there are a lot of things that we get for short times or periods, or things only have so much reach or influence, but by making this, guaranteed as a part of the structure, it makes sure that not only it doesn't disappear when Antiwin retire or anything, or like if it gets handed off too many times, will someone forget about it, So by making it there is something to say that we have to make sure our Aina is protected in that sense for burial sites and practice sites. That's I think that's important, especially in this time.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, there was a group of opponents, some of the developers, some of the hotel alliances that, and I'm not sure. They came out hard and spoke against it. Probably got to the mayor. They got to some of the other council members that voted against it. And so I'm not sure if there's already plans for development in high sensitive areas, but there was a lot of pushback from those industries. And when we think back in history, Kobika, some of these huge hotel developments were the largest desecrators of iwi kupuna, right?
Yes.
Of course, we've got the Ritz-Carlton out in the West End, right? They hit a massive burial site. But what they did was, to their credit, they did move the hotel design, Mauka, and off of the burial site that was along the coastline. The other one was, of course, the Grand Wailea, and the Grand Wailea was a huge a burial site. They hit like 3 or 4 different ones, and I've heard you'll hear the stories and even the horror stories. I've heard. So when you walk down there, you don't realize, but you're walking through this, and I didn't realize it myself, but you're walking through this maze of burial sites when you visit the Grand Wailea. By the parking structure, they put some bones there. If you pass the church on property, they put some bones there. The restaurant on the southern end, where there's a pond with all the fish inside, they put bones along the pipes that was below that pond. The park, there's a county park between the Grand Wailea and on the other hotel south of that. And so that county park, there's a huge mound, and they put more burials there. There's even stories that a truckload of iwi kupuna was taken off-site during the construction of the Grand Wailea, and we're still, practitioners are still trying to find that location of where a whole truckload of iwi kupuna was dumped somewhere. So, I mean, people don't realize, or people like myself, we didn't know all of these stories, but this was the practice, and this was what has been kept from us all these years. And so, we're walking around, and these are all these sites that are within our community. And so I think we just, and it's for cultural practitioners, I don't think people realize the solemnity and the effort to go into to reinter bones. I mean, it's a very somber event, a very heavy, right?
Yes.
Heavy. And so, but our community had to go through this constantly through all these years, you know, and without a lot of, and they did it, right? The culture practitioners did it because this was their kuleana. But so I think this was our effort. Our effort was just to stop that practice. And if it's a burial site, then just leave it alone. You know, it's our ancestors. And so, you know, just for the sake, we don't want to wipe out our history for, you know, for progress, right?
Right.
To just to pave over it. We want to remember those things.
No, and it's very important, you know. I absolutely understand. I have to drive through that end to pay respects to my grandfather. You know, we put him out at sea over there at McKenna Bay, and you know, it's really you know, it is to me, you know, just as somber to have to pass through that, and then now knowing that I'm passing through an even bigger graveyard I was unaware of until this point, you know, and then that it just that's a lot to take in for the first time to hear as a Hawaiian, you know. It was one thing to grow up hurting and seeing the abundance of tourism and what it did to our community, but now knowing, you know, growing up and hearing these things, you know,
Well,
so
that's the irony too, right, Kawika? I mean, like all these pristine. You mentioned tourism. All these pristine beaches, right? And so this is where we want to go lay in the sand and, you know, sun and surf, and you know, it's huge business for the visitor industry. Well, people don't realize in our recent history when Native Hawaiians were not immune to foreign diseases, right?
yes,
So we died from simple things like, you know, fever, pox, you know, smallpox, all of these things because we didn't have a natural immunity to them. And where did they go when they got the fever and they couldn't handle it? And there was nothing to, you know, to ease them. They went down to the beach,
yeah,
and they laid in the sand because that was the only way to go ahead and cool themselves from the fevers that eventually killed them. And a lot of them, ironically, we do have them here in Hana. A lot of them just perished right there in the sand. So you see a lot of our iwi kupuna, if not in the sand, right up shore from it. You know, and that was where, you know, a lot of them were you know, just died right there. And so that's why what the bill does with mapping is that it shows developers prior to developing, hey, there's burials here. Now, if they went ahead and we don't have this mapping system, and if they do go ahead and find iwi kupuna, well, they're not protected. That's when well, those bones would dug up again, and there's no process. What this does is it helps to identify these areas prior to even, you know, going in and digging the ground up.
so how do we make sure this stays? How do we codify this? And you know, I know so as it's explained to me, this veto can be reviewed before the end of this month, and there's supposed to be a meeting on the last Friday. You know, I think that's a little too late. You know, especially if you guys got to like deliberate and you know everybody talk about it. You know, because that kind of like falls on like I think it's like Sunday is the technical last day, and nobody's gonna hold quorum on a Sunday.
Friday, this January 27th.
Yeah.
Friday. And so, yeah, we weren't expecting, you know, we were hoping that the mayor didn't veto it on his last day leaving office. We did reach out to the mayor's office to see if he had any questions about the bill. But he said, his office said that he hadn't received it from the seventh floor and the lawyers downstairs. Everybody had signed off on it, and it was just for him to sign off on it. We were hoping that, you know, as his legacy, he did put in 400 acres of sand dunes and the Wai'ale Road for the protection of burial sites. So we're hoping that with this bill, he would continue to support more protections for cultural sites. The problem, Kawika, is that the original members that voted in support for it are not here.
Oh.
Right. So now we have two new council members that have not gone through the 2 years of work that we did and the 14 meetings that we had on this bill. So they're not really privy to all of these discussions that we've been having for 2 years. And so I think the uncertainty is that if they're for this bill, because they would have to read up on 2 years of work that was put into this bill. So that's the uncertainty about bringing it on the 27th. But if people want to reach out to if they live in any of these new council members' districts, you can go ahead and call them and talk to them about the veto and requiring the council needs 6 votes to override the mayor's veto. And then the bill can go ahead and proceed. So I would recommend if any of those new council members live in your district, hey, give them a call and ask them if they're for this or if they've had a chance to review the bill and if they're likely to support it. Because I think if we can get their support, then we could potentially override the mayor's veto.
Right on. So I'm to understand it that if it doesn't work out though at the end of the month, not everything is lost, right?
Yeah, and again, this was the outgoing mayor's last administrative action. So with that, we have a new incoming mayor in our Mayor-elect Bisson. So we're hoping that maybe he can go ahead and support some of the things that we brought. We can always bring it back. But again, it has to be in somebody's committee, so things will be a little bit more challenging. But hopefully we can see if we can work with the administration and at least bring some parts of the bill back and for reconsideration.
Right on. So, aside from that, I know you're also working diligently to make sure that recently it came to a majority of vote that folks are interested in making sure that the East Maui Water Authority is formed and properly put into place.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Kawika, for bringing that up. Yeah, as you know, Maui County voters, the majority of voters voted for the creation of our East Maui Water Authority board. So that should we go ahead and apply for the East Maui leases from the state, that we would have a board to help manage the system and go after, write some grants to upgrade the system. As you know, the system is over 150 years old. It leaks. And now during climate change, we need more efforts to make sure that our water resources are under local control and not foreign control like it currently is.
And that's a really big thing to bring up. I'm going to stop you right there before we continue more on this. That right there is a really big point to me that you're making is, foreign control. And people don't realize how much of an effect that has on it. Like I recently found out that Arizona's water table is nearly depleted. And they're not looking at, anytime soon of seeing it, even with the nor'easter supplementing rain and water and everything, because the state had lost a lot of control of its water, and I guess through federal deals, a lot of it gets sold to the United Arab Emirates as a water supply deal. And so I think that that's like an interesting thing for people to understand is it's not just, us using water, because I think that sometimes there's that misnomer of like, oh, it's us wasting water, or like, how California tends to like tell people it's because of you, and it's not necessarily just because there's water that goes to other places, like too much to the hotels or too much to outside sources.
Exactly right. Water is life, ole kawai, right? And so these huge corporations from all over the world, this is what they do. They go after all the different countries, Australia, they're all going after everybody's watersheds and water resources. Whoever controls the water controls the life. And so it's been 150 years that it hasn't been in our local control. And with climate change, if we're going to get less water, we need to make sure that we're working for ourselves. We currently, the county pays for water from the current leaseholders. So if we become the leaseholders, then farmers like Mahipono, they would have to come and the East Maui Water Authority would set those rates. And so we flip the switch. We become the managers of our water. And of course, as a government agency, we can apply across the nation. Federal funds are being used to update everybody's old, dilapidated water systems, right? They're doing it. And so we're just following, the trend everywhere in the world is to update, modernize the system so that we have, a working system. And for us, it's also going into the watersheds and making sure we've got healthy watersheds so that we can produce more water. We need more water for our farmers, for food production up country, as well as for Hawaiian homes projects, future projects up country. So we're hoping that we'll get again support from the incoming mayor and to help us to appoint a board. We need to start selecting board members, and also to help fund the operation of these. The East Maui would be the first water authority, and then if other communities around the county wants to create their water authorities in their areas, like Molokai or like Wailuku, then they can go ahead and start the creation of those water authorities as well. That's what the bill did, and that's what everybody voted for.
Right on. That's a really positive chain reaction. I mean, this sets a precedent. Right? It really does.
Yeah, right? We're moving the stakes, moving things forward.
I dig it. So how long does it? I'm not even going to ask about the money part because, quite frankly, knowing how big the budget is for Maui County, should be no problem. Hey, Mr. Mayor, just cut one check, bro. But but the appointments and that process and defining its roles and its interactions with the community, with businesses and everything to make all sides appeased. How long do you think it'll take to get it established?
Oh, we're starting already. We put out the application process. So we're starting with that, and hopefully during this next budget round, then we get to go ahead and fund the director's position, a secretary, and so it's not a lot of money. I mean, and then just some operational costs, but so hopefully with that, I mean, it's an investment, right, for us to get more water, and it's an investment to our Keiki's futures too. I mean, for them we want to make sure that they have, our natural resources secure for them. What we do now, I mean, we're not going to be here, but everything we're doing now is for their benefit, their survival.
Yes, that's right. Legacy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we covered quite a lot today. Thank you for, taking time out of your busy schedule to talk story with me and with the people and let us know what we can do and how things are moving forward. And I just love being able to check in with you because, a lot of us have the time in between our busy schedules, and so for even you to fit in enough time to talk on a podcast and be able to get to some ears that don't have the time in their day to find out about this themselves but can hear it while they're driving down the road, I appreciate that.
Hey, mahalo, brother Kawika. We just wanted to mahalo you for always supporting us, and to everybody who supported our efforts too. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do all of this without everybody else's support. So Again, if people want to call our office and get more information on the East Maui Water Authority Board or the Cultural Overlay Bill, you can call our office in Hana at 808-248-7513.
Right on. Well, Shane Sinenci, thank you for coming on today.
Hey, all right, brah. And hey, Happy New Year. Aloha.
Aloha.